June 7th meeting of the Planning Board. First, we'll take a roll call vote to introduce board members. Kate.
Here.
Phil.
I'm here.
Josh.
Here.
And Ellen.
Here.
And I'm Chris Paff, and I'm here as well. This meeting is recorded by Westwood Media Center and broadcast live on local cable television, Comcast Channel 12 and Verizon Channel 42. Meetings are also live on Westwood Media Center's YouTube channel. If you're interested in joining the meeting via Zoom, you can find the login directions in the planning board meeting notice that is posted on the calendar section of the town's webpage at www.townhall.westwood.ma.us. We will begin the meeting with only the board members and staff unmuted and on video. As the chair recognizes individuals to speak, we will unmute them. Board members may choose to mute themselves when they are not speaking in order to minimize background noise. For applications, the chair will first invite the applicant to address the board and give a presentation summarizing what is being requested. Board members received the application materials prior to the meeting and will have reviewed them. Board members may ask questions during and following the presentation. Staff and outside experts will provide comments to the board. If the issue includes a public hearing, the board will then proceed to the public comment portion of the public hearing and will restate the instructions. In this remote meeting format, residents and guests may participate in several ways. Attendees should raise their hand and wait to be unmuted and recognized to speak over the Zoom meeting application or from a telephone dial-up. We will be able to hear you but not see you. Additionally, comments may be submitted by email or regular mail prior to the meeting. When we come to that part of the meeting, I will remind everyone of the process. Following the public comment portion, the board will deliberate and make a decision or continue the hearing to a specific future date. All remote meetings require the votes be taken by roll call. When a motion and a second has been made, the chair will ask if there's any further discussion before proceeding to a roll call vote, and then we'll restate the results of the vote. All right, Nora, do we have any changes to tonight's agenda?
No changes to the agenda. Just note that this is two simultaneous hearings by the Planning Board and the Conservation Commission. So
do we need to allow them to do anything to open up their hearing?
We don't typically, but I would just, as the chair of the Conservation Commission, open the hearing tonight and really follow the Planning Board's leads, and we'll weigh in consistent with your instructions at the beginning, Chris.
All right, thanks, John. Okay, first on our list is 394, 396 Providence Highway, the Shell Station.
Just before we get into that, if I could just introduce our new town planner who's here with us today, John Charbonneau. Today is his very first day in Westwood, so I just want everyone to meet him.
Welcome, John.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome aboard.
I will begin to let
much.
in the applicant and other attendees for the 394, 396 Providence Highway meeting. All right, Michael, I see you have Andrew, Robert, Greg, and Sean.
That's
right?
correct. Yep.
Andrew just has to accept panelist and he'll be in. There we go. All right, so you can begin your presentation whenever you're ready. We have the Planning Board and the Conservation Commission members here for two simultaneous hearings.
Thank you very much, Nora. And Mr. Charbonneau, welcome to the town of Westwood. Good evening, members of the Planning Board and members of the Conservation Commission. Thank you all for being here. My name is Michael Brown. I represent Colbia Enterprises, LLC. We are here this evening for our environmental impact and design review of the proposed raise and rebuild of the gas station at 394 Providence Highway. We're also here before the Conservation Commission in relation to the notice of intent that we filed with regard to the same project. Here with me tonight are Andrew Della Carpini, who's the CEO of Colbia, Bob McGann, who's another senior executive at Colbia, Greg Burnett, who is our project designer, and Sean Kelly, who is with Vanass and Associates and who is our traffic and safety expert. Just by way of history, the station that you may all be familiar with at 394 Providence Highway has existed there since 1969. Colbia currently leases that property from William McDonough. The adjacent parcel at 396 is currently vacant and was owned until very recently by Mass DOT until 2020 when Colbia purchased it. Our proposed project seeks to combine the two parcels and to renovate the existing gas station and recenter it on the two combined parcels. The new facility will include 4 fuel pumps or 8 pumping areas, a convenience store, a coffee shop, and a drive-through. In terms of zoning, really quickly, 394 Providence Highway is zoned as industrial office, and the gas station is a pre-existing non-conforming use. The proposed renovation would extinguish that status. 396 Providence Highway is currently unzoned due to it being a former Mass DOT property. We petitioned the town in the spring to have both parcels designated as highway business, which was approved by town meeting on May 2nd. We've applied for special permits from the zoning board for the use as a gas station, for the convenience store, the coffee shop, the drive-through, and all of the associated signage. And once we receive those approvals, the gas station will then conform with the highway business zoning designation. So our project timeline consists of the following. Currently, obviously, we're working with these two boards on the EIDR review and on our notice of intent. We will then proceed to the zoning board to obtain the zoning relief that we need, as I mentioned earlier. Once the Attorney General approves the zoning change, which should happen in, I believe, August, we'll engage with Mass DOT to coordinate and collaborate on the curb cuts that will be required on Route 1, and then obtain the building permits from the town, and if all goes well, begin construction on the project in the spring of 2023. In terms of the project, I think it's important to note that it will resemble Colbia's other location in Westwood, which is right up the street on the southbound side of Route 1 at 75 Providence Highway. We worked with the town and obtained approval from the town a few years ago for that project. From our perspective, it's been a successful project, and we believe this project will be very similar in appearance and in operation. We believe that the proposed project at the combined parcel will improve the existing use in the following areas. There will be a new store and new pumping stations. The store and the stations, the entire facility will be centrally located on the site. It will include improved traffic circulations and will incorporate Walper Street for ingress and egress. We will be installing new fire suppression and safety systems at the pumping stations. We're using the same storage tanks that are there right now for the fuel, but those storage tanks are also very new within the last few years. And finally, we will be complying with stormwater standards, which do not currently exist. I think now the water simply sheets off onto Route 1. So we believe that the project will improve both the aesthetic value of the site as well as the safety. Now, I mentioned some individuals who are here tonight to describe the project in more detail and to answer any questions that either of the board members have. But first, before we get to that, I'd like to introduce Andy Della Carpini, who, as I mentioned, is the CEO of Colbia, and he can tell you a little bit about the company.
Thank you, Michael. Members of the board, I appreciate you guys giving us the time this evening to present in front of you. I've been part of this organization for just shy of 30 years, family-run organization. My father-in-law started it. I joined the organization when we had 2, and today we have 115 locations. So it's been pretty successful for us. We developed the Seasons brand back around 2014, my wife and I, just to distinguish ourselves. And back in 2018, we came to the town of Westwood to present the plans to rebuild the 75 Providence Highway down the street. We were successful in getting approvals to rebuild that site. The town worked with us very well. I'm assuming, I heard nothing but praise and compliments, and we worked with the town very well. Very similar scenario. There is a river stream that runs next to that property, so we had to deal with the COMCOM as well, and we worked well with the agent during construction and so forth, and still today we still continue to work well. The facility down the street has worked great for us. I think it's a great new facility for the town, and I'd love to be able to do this one as well. We've had this site for just as long as we've had the other site down the street. We've been chasing DOT to sell us the piece of property, Mass DOT, but as you probably are all well aware, it takes quite a significant amount of time to get any piece of property from the states. Realizing that the site that we had prior at 394 is just too constrained to really do any type of major rebuild, combining it with the property at that corner gave us the ability to build something similar to what's down the street at 75 Providence Highway, but just a little smaller in scale. The one down the street has a separate diesel island. This one does not. The one down the street has 5 dispensers. This one has 4 to improve the circulation around the facility. But for the most part, very, very similar image, similar appearance, similar operations. My family organization runs both locations. Today, we do not run 394. Once we rebuild it, with your blessing, we will take it over and run it with our own staff and our employees. So I'm here to answer any questions on operation sides, and I appreciate your time listening to the petition tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Nor do we have any other members of the application team looking to present?
I think Michael's going to walk us through the plans, or someone else
That's
on the
right.
team.
Yep.
My name is Greg Burnett. I'm with the Prude Engineering. We're the engineers working with will be on this project. Good evening to all the board members. I apologize. I'll try to make this as quick as possible, and I apologize for any repeating information that might have been said already. I'm going to try to share my screen here and give you a little bit more of a visual of the existing site and walk you through a little bit of our design that we put together. Can everybody see my screen all right?
Yes.
Okay. So this is the property that we're here in front of you tonight about existing Shell station. It's a fairly small convenience store, and it has 2 service bays, which will be, they're not in use now, and they will be discontinued moving forward. We won't have service bays in the new building. There's the 4 pumps in here with the 8 positions. They're stacked positions, so it's 2 on this side and 2 over here. And the curb cuts coming off of Providence Highway, there's a right in, right out on the south side, and then also on the north side. It's a pretty tight site. Circulation is not the greatest. There's only 5 parking stalls right now on the site to service the building. So we feel by acquiring this other property down here, rotating the building, and we can get into the design plan itself, but we feel that we definitely have enhance the safety of the vehicles that travel through the site and utilize the pumps. One of the comments that came back from life safety through their review, just to bring it to your attention if you haven't seen it, was that they did feel there was evidence that patrons using the gas station were actually coming back out of this right in, right out on the south side and taking a left, heading into traffic just to get back to Walper Street, to get back to whatever office complex they were using in the back. And that kind of drove one of the reasons why we wanted to create that other access point off of Walper Street. Yeah, let's flip to, this is the existing conditions plan. So if you orientate yourself, this is Providence Highway here. The 4 pump station stack that we're talking about, the existing Shell station. This is the property that Covia has acquired. This here for the Conservation Commission, this is the wetland delineation out in the back. Only a small portion of the wetland actually is on the property, but we do delineate out the 35-foot no disturb zone and the 100-foot buffer area as well, where you can see the existing tanks, the existing building, part of the parking area, all fall within that 100-foot buffer area today. So we don't feel like we're encroaching any more than what's existing. Before we move on, actually, just to go into some of the stormwater and the topography, the site now, and I think it was mentioned earlier by Mr. Brown, there's really no stormwater management on this site, and we've had conversations with DOT. It's obviously not a preferred practice on their end either. They don't want to see flow going to their right of way, never mind untreated flow. So existing today, the site does sheet flow out onto Route 1 and is captured in their infrastructure. If not on the north side, I believe it just runs down the roadway and discharges into the wetland that's adjacent to the site, untreated, as we had talked about before. The existing utilities for the site, other than stormwater, there is services for gas, water, electric coming off of Walper that service the building. I believe the electric is available also coming off of Providence Highway. And sanitary, the existing sanitary connection is also off of Providence Highway. So this is the proposed layout that we're presenting to you tonight. As you can see, we have 4 pump stations to remain, but what we did was we put them in line while we rotated the building around to be more parallel with Providence Highway and create a drive and a more typical gas station feel, as you would see. The inline pump configuration definitely gives a better circulation around and through the site. We're able to come up with the minimum parking is 15 spaces. Under the code, we have 16 spaces delineated right here, with the majority of them being front of store parking. There's 2 electric vehicle charging stations per code as well, which are not part of that 16 count. Those are located down here at the end of the store. So there's a couple EV, and this is the transformer that services those EV stations. Again, we're trying to utilize, and we've had preliminary conversations with DOT regarding the entrances coming off of Route 1. We're maintaining their approximate locations. We did alter them a little bit, and one of the ways that we're trying to increase the safety is we're making the southern entrance a right-in only, and the northern entrance is actually an exit only, a right-out exit. So patrons coming down or coming north on Providence Highway will enter the site on the south and exit on the north. This here is the full access that we're proposing coming off of Walper Street. And as I mentioned just a little bit ago, having this life safety police department felt this was a significant improvement to the surrounding area, and for patrons using the store, trying to access the store and then get back into the Walper Street with the businesses behind. You can see on this plan, the highlighted yellow is a 35-foot no disturb or no touch zone coming off of the wetland. And you can see that we have, our layout with our erosion control measures, and any disturbance is all outside of that 35-foot no touch zone. There is the drive-through that comes around the rear of the store. The service window is at the back corner, which provides stacking and queuing for patrons that are coming into the site. There is a bypass lane on the outer edge. So if there is any type of backup, there is a bypass for patrons to get around. Looking at stormwater, as we spoke about, there's no existing stormwater or treatment to date. What we're proposing, it's a fairly flat site, and we don't have a lot of elevation change in order to have our discharge for the overflow for the larger storms outside of the 35-foot no disturb zone. So it was a little bit difficult to get a system to work and maintain the proper treatment that's necessary, but we're able to accomplish that by splitting the site basically in 2/3 in the front. So 2/3 of the property, the front area here, all the parking area is sheet flowing down. We proposed trench drain systems at both of the entrances going on in the Route 1 to capture any stormwater that might exit the site. There's one catch basin down here on the south west corner of the site. All that stormwater is collected. It goes through a oil water separator, which has the capability to be turned off in case of a spill and collect any type of spill. It would eventually go through a bypass system where the first flush, the first rainstorm or the first amount of the rainstorm would be directed towards an underground sand filter. And then the remaining portions or any overflow would be directed to an underground infiltration system. In all, the overflow and discharge of that system, as you can see, is routed around and discharged to the back through the flare dam section with riprap. The building itself, with clean water coming off the roof system in the back parking area, what we did back here with the limited elevation change is we're proposing a stormcrete. It's a pervious concrete system. It's made for this type of scenario where we can infiltrate and treat stormwater with a low profile system. They're easily maintained and easily replaced as the longevity of the system. If there is any clogs or any maintenance that needs to be, they can lift those panels up, clean it out and put them back in. Same type of scenario. There's a small overflow for the larger storm events that discharges out the back towards the wetland there. The other utilities on the site, we have our sanitary flow is going to be discharged out to the north. Kitchen waste from the QSR will come through a 1,500 gallon grease interceptor and then combined and discharged to the public system on Route 1, similar to how it is operational today. We're proposing the water service, gas service, and electrical to come off of Walper Street. Easy entrance right into the building on this side. We did submit a landscape plan and design with this application. I won't pretend to be a landscape architect, but I can tell you this is a robust landscape plan. We have 16 ornamental trees proposed throughout the property, 16 evergreen trees, so a total of 32 trees to be planted on the site, 63 shrubs, and around 57 focal plants or ornamental grasses to be installed. A significant improvement to what's out there today. Overall, we view this project as a significant improvement to the current site conditions in the surrounding community. I guess I'd open it up back to the board members if there's any questions or anything else they'd like to see at this time.
Okay, thank you very much. Nora, well, I guess I'll put it out to board member questions. We'll start with planning board and then we'll move on to conservation. Any planning board members with any questions? Okay, I'm not seeing or hearing anybody, so.
Actually, Chris.
Oh, sorry, Josh, didn't see you there.
No worries. So I actually really do agree that this will provide a lot of benefit. I've used this gas station a number of times and, you know, it's definitely in need of some love. The couple things I would comment on though, is that according to the Mass DP website, the initial tanks were installed all the way back into '56. So it makes the site much older, not much, but 15 years older in terms of the first tank install. And I do worry about the excavation for the new building potentially being right over one of the old tanks that was supposed to have been removed. I always like to verify that they're gone with ground penetrating radar. So is that something that you guys plan on doing or already have done? I haven't seen evidence of.
If I could speak to that, I mean, we've rebuilt a significant number of locations. I think we're up to about 45 new low seasons locations. We have an environmentalist on our own staff. So as soil's being dug out, if there's any concerns or any challenges, he tests the soil to make sure that there's no contamination. When they did install the tanks, the new ones, usually DEP requires them to over dig if they can get the soil. Normally they don't really require to go under buildings. So we will be very conscientious when we're doing the excavation underneath the building to make sure that nothing has migrated to any of those areas underneath the building. But normally we can only get to those once we've torn it down and start to excavate in that general area.
Yeah, just by the overview on the Shell 453, it looks like in the bottom right-hand corner of the building, right outside, there used to be a gas tank, diesel tank, it looks like.
We found tanks. We just did a tank job in North Dartmouth, and we actually found tank vaults in the ground, and had to remediate those and conducted the proper care to make sure the soil was treated properly. So we're very versed in taking care of contaminated properties. The facility down the street that we rebuilt was probably just as old as this, and a lot of times the old oil companies, they would just not remediate the properties as well as they had to. We take environmental very serious. That's why we have an environmentalist on our staff. He makes sure, Eric Simpson makes sure that everything is in compliance. All the soil is tested. If it needs to be treated, it's taken off site and treated. And if it's reusable, we'll reuse it on site.
Okay, so do you have any plan to do ground penetrating radar in that area, or you're just going to dig and hopefully nothing's there and be careful?
Right. The contractors that we use are all versed in petroleum facilities. So we're not planning on doing any radar right now. If we do find dirt that we feel is contaminated, they have enough knowledge and have done it enough times where they can pretty much tell. And if it is that case, then even if it doesn't look right, we'll have to, because it is a gas station facility, we'll have to be doing sampling of the soil as we're excavating it anyhow. But if it does reach any limits to the point that exceed the DEP requirements, then it will be treated.
And would you be able to talk about the enforcement action back in 2017? What was that for?
I believe there was a problem with one of the tanks in the ground that they basically had to fill it with cement or something like that because there was an inner wall had leaked or something like that. A lot of these tanks have two walls. They have an inner wall and an outer wall. I'm not completely versed. It was 2017. We have, like I said, over 100 locations, but I think I recall that this one had a problem with an interstitial wall that had created a problem, and we had to take that tank out of service, and that led us to ratchet up the replacement of the tanks. Normally, we like to replace the tanks at the same time we're doing a raise and rebuild, so we're not inconveniencing customers for 2 periods of times. But because of the issue that came to hand, we basically moved up the tank job to make sure that the environmental for the tank was taken care of prior to getting any potential permits to do the raise and rebuild for the facility.
Awesome. Yeah, I saw that 6, 7, 9, and 10 were removed in 2018, so that makes sense.
Mhm.
And sorry, the 21J information isn't filled out for that site. Is that the same as the Shell 87, or is that a different 21J information?
Well, that's why I have an environmentalist on staff, because the 21Js and everything else, he makes sure that we're applying for all of them. He makes sure that, if there is an open release, it stays open and continues. I don't know if they've actually closed out the prior job on this, the 21J that was on this project. But Eric Simpson is the one that stays in touch with the states to make sure that everything is in compliance with the 21J.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Josh. I had a very quick question, I guess. How often are you expecting to fill these tanks, and at what time of day do you typically do that?
Well, as far as, once again, I'll take that as it's operational. The tanks are monitored by the trucking company that we use, Noonan, who delivers the fuel to the locations. So they continually monitor the inventory levels of the tanks, and as the inventory level gets low, they'll schedule deliveries throughout the days, through the nights. They try not to schedule deliveries during the peak time because it's inefficient for them and it's inefficient for us. But situations happen where, whether it's a storm, whether it's a challenge, something that happens and there's a tremendous draw on the facilities, sometimes they have to adjust scheduling. So this way, I can't guarantee that there won't be a truck there at 9 o'clock in the morning, and I can't guarantee you there won't be one at 5. But I know normally what they'll try to do is schedule around those peak times. Basically, I guess if you haven't seen any issues or problems down at 75 Providence Highway, this one should probably operate at that level, if not at a lower level, since that one has separate diesel islands, which require the filling. And obviously when tractor trailers are filling up, they take a significantly higher amount of gallons than a typical car. And it also has an additional dispenser. The dispensers that we're replacing over here are really, the 4 dispensers that are there now are just in a parallel system structure, if you want to call it. The ones we're proposing are perpendicular. So I do expect an increase in gas volume. Obviously, we'll have more offerings for customers, but the inventory delivery is monitored and adjusted based on the need of the facility.
All right, thank you. And I just wanted to clarify, you had mentioned, forgive me, I forget who mentioned it. There was a service window for the drive-through on the back left corner. Is that the only one? Do you have a cash or pay first, then pick up second, or is it just one window?
No, we just have one window. It'll be very similar to the one that we have down the street at Westwood. Right now, it probably will be Mary Lou's as well, although we have, since we developed the facility down the street, we have developed our own coffee brand offering, which is Corner Market Cafe. We have a very good relationship with Mary Lou, and Mary Lou's the company itself. So because of the facility up the street, sometimes there is some peak times when it gets a little bit busy. We'll probably install another Mary Lou's down at this facility as well.
Okay, thanks. Any other planning board members with questions? Yes, Ellen.
I just, I had a quick question. When I was looking through some of the comments from other staff, the building commissioner had made a couple of comments about the signage. The pylon sign exceeds the maximum square foot of 100, and that the number of signs overall exceeds what you're allowed by right. So I was just curious if you had any thoughts on what you wanted to do about that.
So I can take that. We're going to be working with the zoning board, and the signage is the subject of our submission to the zoning board for relief. So we're not sure what it's going to end up looking like, but that's something we're going to be addressing with them.
Okay, so you haven't made any changes to the plans that we've already seen so far?
No, we haven't.
Okay, all right, thank you.
I guess if I could just make a comment on that. I'm very aware of signage. You know, I always tell everybody, we take a lot of pride in the way these facilities look, and I've used the comment many times. It's not the Bart Simpson C-store littered in window signs and so forth. So the fortunate opportunity that you guys have is you can see the way we operate down at the other facility. We operate very clean. We don't litter the places with signage, but we'll handle it through zoning like we did the one down the street. And hopefully between what they want, but between what we want, we'll find some sort of happy compromise and be able to move on, hopefully.
All right, thank you. Any other board members with questions or comments? Yes, Phil.
Oh, got on mute. I have some questions just on the traffic issues. You have a couple of different time periods which come out of the DOT. The crash data goes through 2020, but the existing traffic volumes go through 2021. Why differing time periods on the crash period versus the existing traffic volumes?
Sure, I can answer that. Sean Kelly with Vanessa Associates on behalf of the team. Thank you for having us tonight. Typically, when we look at the Mass DOT data, we don't analyze the last year. And the reason why, frankly, is that the state is still in the process of going through a clearinghouse process where they review the data and, make sure it's at the appropriate location and really kind of scrub the data they receive from municipalities. So when you go into the database, what you'll see is that most of the cases are still open for 2021. So that they haven't completed their review internally yet. So they ask us to go up only to the year that it's been done. And in this case, it was 2020. So that's really the difference.
Okay, so the crash data does only go through 2020, but the existing traffic volume goes through October 2021.
That's right.
So that does go into the time period that.
Right. Yeah. The crash data and the count data were really two separate aspects of the report. The crash data is we're looking at the historical crashes that occurred over a 5-year period. The count data is we won't actually do counts. And in this case, we looked at the morning peak hour 7 to 9. The evening 4 to 6, and then Saturday 11 to 2, and those are based on current conditions in the field. So in the crash data, it's really kind of a review of the last half decade, whereas for the count data, we're looking at what's going on today.
Okay, on the project generated traffic summary,
Sure.
There seems to be a pretty significant increase in new vehicle trips week where we're up to on a Saturday 352 new vehicle trips, 172 on the average weekday. First, how did you come to a determination, and then secondarily, what's the what was or what has been your understanding of the Walper Street? Because that doesn't seem to be, as far as I can find, the Walper Street traffic, which is going to be either mitigated or eliminated in terms of the risk that has been occurring.
Sure. So a couple things. While the project does generate a fair amount of traffic, I think it's important to understand that when you have a project of this type, a lot of that traffic is what we call pass by in nature, meaning it's already traveling on the corridor. I mean, if you think about it, you probably can't remember the last time you left your house simply to go out and fill your gas tank and come back home. You do it as part of another route. So
Right.
most of this traffic is new, rather is passed by, not new. Those numbers, the 172 and the 352, it's important that those are numbers over the course of an entire day, so 24 hours. So that's not something you'll ever see in one specific, focused time frame. It's from 6 in the morning till 6 in the morning, if you will. In terms of the actual peak hour increases, when you'll see during the busiest hours of roadway traffic, we're talking about around 15 to 25 new trips per hour. As you can imagine, most of it is going to come from the south. People aren't going to drive by the other seasons to come to this season. So, we assume that we're going to get about 60% from the south, and then on University and Everett, we'll get the other 40%. In terms of an increase, the increases from a percentage basis is about 0.4 to 0.6, which quite frankly is less than we're assuming in just, growth in traffic independent of anything along the corridor. I think, when you look at the impact of this traffic, what it really shows is that, in terms of delays, you're really not going to notice it. You're going to have a car every other minute may go through the signalized intersection of the south, but for the most part, the average motorist won't even be able to perceive the change in traffic volumes. I have not seen this phenomenon with Walper Street. I have heard anecdotally that it does happen. I wouldn't be surprised if it happens, particularly whether you have the signal below that does stop some of the traffic on Route 1. So people may think there is a certain safety level to make that maneuver when there's no one coming at you. But certainly it's not an ideal situation. Certainly nothing we want to promote. We've conservatively.
I've gone by there many times, and if I saw something like that, I'd be an unhappy camper. I'll tell you.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely, and it's certainly if it's occurring today, we want it to stop. So frankly, as part of our analysis, we didn't really put a lot of traffic onto Walper Street. We think the bulk of it is going to come off Route 1, but certainly, in terms of safety, in terms of access, it's a great improvement if they are doing that today, because it's going to let them get into the site and out of the site without having to either get back on Route 1 and make a U-turn maneuver further north, or again, continue to make that dangerous maneuver that they may be making today. So it certainly is an improvement over existing conditions.
Yeah, I agree. The Walper situation, I think, is definitely an improvement. On the data, though, that you're doing through, because 2020 was such a dramatic drop in car usage. I mean, it was the traffic. Did you adjust on a statistical basis or in any respect your data when you had because while traffic picked up even in 2021, 2020 was a huge trough in terms of what would be an average.
Right.
Did you do anything in terms of making any determination?
When we collected our data, we did it later in the year. We did it actually in the fall of 2021. So at that point, most of the volume was back in the corridor.
Okay. I like the Walper situation. So that's all the questions I had. I'll pass it on.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Phil. Anyone else with questions? Kate, yes.
Thank you. I did just want to go back to what Ellen had pointed out about the signs. And I just want to highlight the difference between the two sites. Up the road, I believe that was already a fully utilized space. And so it was just new signage maybe, or the difference wasn't that big, but this is replacing green space. And there hasn't been significant signage there yet. So just if you would, right now it's green space. So just bear that in mind as you move forward with your plans for signage. I just wanted to mention that. I'm pleased with the plan overall, and I'm looking forward to seeing what the Conservation Commission has to say about it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other board members from Planning Board with comments or questions may have just come to them? All right, seeing none, we will turn it over to Conservation for their questions. Nora, can you, we are obviously not going to be deciding this evening. Do we have plans for a peer review?
We do have to have a peer review for this. It's up to the board to determine officially that they need one, but generally for projects of this size, we do require peer review. And I have provided the board members with a scope of work provided by Beta for their peer review services on this, if you're interested in requiring the applicant to cover the cost of the Beta peer review.
Well, I think following comments and questions from Conservation, the planning board will discuss that. So at this point, I'll turn it over to the Conservation Commission.
Yeah, so maybe I'll just make a quick comment to that, Chris and Nora. Yeah, I would expect we'd want a peer review on the drainage system. It is, as the applicant noted, it's a pretty tough site. It's very, shallow groundwater on the site. It sounds like they've done a good job recognizing that with what he described. But yeah, the devil's in the details for those things to make sure that they're going to work, and that the replacement scheme about the more problematic stuff on the perimeter of the site, it's necessary to know that that's in fact feasible. So anyway, so with that, yeah, I would say that the Conservation Commission, unless I hear comments from others on the commission to the contrary, expected we'd want a peer review. So with that, maybe I'll just put it out to the rest of the commission for any members that have any questions or concerns. And Karen, if you've been out to the site as well, conservation agent, if you have any comments or questions. Anybody want to weigh in first?
Hi, John. Todd Sullivan. I'm the vice chair of the Concom. I'd like to support Andrew's comments with the business across the street. They did a nice job. That was a challenging site. My big concern there was additional stormwater going on Route 1, and they managed to handle it. And it seems like the business is doing well, and they're helping support our tax base. So I'm all for it. Seems like a good project, and that's it.
And any of the other commissioners?
Hi, Vesna Maneva. I have a question about the system that you mentioned in the back of the house where you are using porous concrete. And you mentioned that the porous concrete is some sort of like blocks that you can lift up and clean. That sounds very interesting. I've never heard of that before. Would be nice to see a detail of that if you have, or you can describe it a little more.
Yep, I can either describe it more now. I can share my screen. The details are in the plan set that were submitted with the application. I believe it's on page 8.
Page 8.
There's in-depth details and specifications for the whole system, but I can share my screen and show you. Or
Stormcrete.
Yep, Stormcrete precast porous concrete slabs.
How big are the slabs?
I believe they're like 5 by 7 roughly.
5 inches by 7 inches, or
no, like 5 feet by 7 feet.
So the lifting up is going to have to happen with the machinery of some sort, right? It's not
correct.
Okay. That's all I had. I thought that was very interesting and creative way to deal with that issue. Other than that, I think you've done a fine job of maximizing the site layout. I saw that you use, as you mentioned, there was quite a few plant materials included, and it's going to be improvement to what's already there.
There was also, as I understand it, Karen's been out to the site and observed quite a bit of invasive plants. And so clearly an interest of the Conservation Commission is, to the greatest extent possible, removal of that, and effective removal. It can be difficult, some of it to get rid of, but also make sure that the new vegetation doesn't conflict with the removal of invasives, and that it is local species that will survive well and benefit the wetlands interests as well as the aesthetics around the site. Vesna, have you had an opportunity to sort of look at what they're proposing from plants standpoint?
Yeah, it looks like it's most of it it's native. There is some that are not, but bear in mind this will be tough conditions for at least towards the highway itself. So what they have is kind of standard, standard things that you've seen in this kind of landscape.
And I would assume that they looked into the, some of the trees that we might look at in a wet environment like this, like red maple, have root systems that might be a challenge for that, the pavers that you were talking about earlier. So
yeah, they do have the red maples near that area, right? So the red maples are shown towards the wetland buffer, lining the backside of the parking lot. And there is also some river birches there, which is also, they are, wetland species or suitable for a wetland buffer.
Okay.
And then certainly the frontage, rhododendrons, what's red? The frontage is mostly evergreens that provide a little bit of screening and ornamental grasses.
Yeah, so I would just, the red maples would be a concern relative to the porous pavement.
Right.
In that environment, I would love to see native red maples everywhere, but this may be one of those places where you're gonna want to limit their use.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not have any. And I don't. Is the birch also have similar sort of roots tendency, the high roots?
No, I have not heard of the birches having aggressive roots.
Okay. But then going back to the first comment about existing invasive species on the site and removal plan. Do you have anything for that in your plans at this point?
We don't have anything in our plans at this point, but it's something that we can speak with the owners about and our landscape architect and see if we can come up with something that would satisfy the board.
Okay, good. Yeah, I think that we'd want to see that, frankly, in part for your benefit, but also for trying to get rid of these invasives that are.
Yeah, I mean, I think at the back of there are other species that you can use. You can use, like tupelo. You can use liquid amber. There are seedless ones that may work okay. As John said, maybe, because of the aggressive roots of red maples, you should consider a different species in the back.
So let's see, Stephen or Deborah, do you have any comments? Any questions?
My only comment is that I think it's an improvement of the site. The stormwater management obviously is critical. I'd be interested to see Beta's comments. I think it would be appropriate maybe if the chair would entertain a motion to continue, in which case, I would be prepared to offer that motion because I think once we get Beta's information, we'd want to take a second look at this and more in depth and have it at one of our meetings. So,
okay, Karen,
those are my only comments.
Okay, Karen, did you have?
I do have a comment. I did go out to the site to review the wetland line and only found 3 flags, WFA 7 through 9. I did see flag numbers on the plans that were shown earlier, but I couldn't find them out there. So that will have to be looked at.
And Deborah, any comments or questions?
I think at first blush, it looks like a good plan, certainly an improvement to the site. I do like their attention to the stormwater problem. And certainly we would want to take a close look at protecting the wetlands behind. So from a vegetation perspective, invasives perspective, I would echo the comments that we've already made and would look forward to a more in-depth look at it, I think,
Sure.
with the second review.
Yeah, and I think with you know, with peer review comments that really get into lots of little details that frankly we don't want to take our time to check inverts and pipe sizes and you know whether those panels are you know have got a good history or there's some other issues with them. So yeah, I'd look forward to their review. So yeah, I'm not sure this is the right time and you know what the right motion would be, but yeah, I would expect we're going to continue this, and that I would expect that we are going to look to get a peer review, and with the peer review comments having those ahead of a future continued hearing, we'd you know probably have a chance to get right into those nuts and bolts and presumably help move the project forward.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I'd make a motion that that we continue the hearing.
I support Stephen's motion, Mr. Chairman.
All right, should we have just do it? Karen, you are
So you want to continue to
to a future date? Yeah, and what
date
would that? Yeah, should we talk to the applicant just before we sort of continue this and make that vote to continue? Do you have a sense for how long, or maybe this goes to Nora or Karen about how long it would take to get peer review comments?
I believe it would take about 3 weeks at a minimum to get peer review comments back on this. So I'm going to recommend that the planning board continue their hearing till their next meeting on June 28th. So if the Conservation Commission has a meeting sometime after that date or right before, I wouldn't go too much earlier than that.
Right. No,
our next date after that is July 13th. We do have a meeting the 29th.
The 29th?
June 29th.
That would be a good choice.
So you can continue to June 29th at 7 o'clock.
That seems fine to me. So is that good, Stephen, to your motion?
I think, yeah, because I kind of want to see Beta. I think that if Nora thinks that's how long it'll take, and we'd like to move it along on the benefit of the applicant. So if I guess we call the roll and continue it, that'd be great.
Okay.
Well, sorry.
Yeah, Karen, do you want to just call a roll and we can vote that continuance? And I assume that the continuance is and it's predicated on the review of the peer reviewer, so that it logically contains the approval for or the request to get the peer review done by Beta.
Okay, Deborah O'Day.
Yes.
John Rogers.
Aye.
Stephen David.
Aye.
Vesna Maniva.
Aye.
Todd Sullivan.
Aye.
Good. Well, yeah, from a conservation standpoint, thank you. I agree. It does look like you've sort of touched all the bases on this, and I think it is just a matter of looking at the details. A few questions we, and comments we made, but can't see any reason that we can't, with the peer review, get into some little more potentially nuts and bolts and get those resolved at that, perhaps at that next hearing.
Well, thank you very much for your time. I have a question for Nora. Would you expect that we would get a copy of any peer review reports before the 28th?
Yes, I believe you'd probably get them just a few days before that, enough time for you to have received them and reviewed them and to respond to the comments, but probably not to revise your plans entirely before those meetings occur.
I would expect that, yeah, I'd expect that we'd be shooting to have responses, at least verbally, during these next hearings. And I should also say that if Beta needs anything from the applicant, please feel free to reach out and we can collaborate in that way as well.
Great.
Before we leave, let me ask my team if anybody has anything to add or to respond to any of the comments tonight.
And sorry, could you not leave yet?
Yeah, I think the planning board may still have some additional questions or comments.
Sure.
All right, Kate?
Yeah, I'm
That's
so
yours.
sorry. Thank
It's
you.
all right.
I forgot about what I would want to see there if I worked at Westwood Media Center, and what I would want to see, and maybe it's there and I didn't pay enough attention. If I'm just going to walk down the street to go in and get a sandwich and a cup of coffee, is there a walkway for me? Is there, what does a pedestrian do?
So I'll answer that. We've had preliminary talks with the DOT, and they have in their plans to upgrade and rework the widening of Providence Highway. So we're in collaboration with them to work on our design and incorporate their design. So there has been talks about establishing a sidewalk along the frontage, and that may change our plans a little bit as we go through the DOT process. As you know, it's a timely process for them to do anything. So, but there has been discussions, and there is plans in their future to put a sidewalk within the right of way.
Great. And so I appreciate that. But if you're coming just down the street from Westwood Media Center, you don't want to go out to all the way to Route 1. You're going to cut into the driveway, and you're going to want to crosswalk into the building through, where the drive-through is. So what I want to know is, I'd love for you to have a plan for keeping pedestrians safe, because it is, there's going to be nice things available there, and people get thirsty. So.
On that same note, I was thinking that this whole area of Walper going all the way up to Analog Devices, it's kind of its own little enclave of businesses that are kind of interconnected. And while you might not expect to see people riding bikes down Route 1, they may take a right off of University Avenue or Everett Street and get in there. And we are typically asking businesses developing on Route 1 to provide bike racks. I don't know if that's something, I didn't see it on the plans. So I think that's something that before our next meeting, we'd like you to consider and think about a location maybe for a bike rack for those individuals looking to get there on bicycle. May not be a lot, but I think if they are there, we don't want to see the bikes leaning against the building or lying down for people to trip over, things like that.
And even with the increase in traffic, the Walper Street pedestrian traffic wants to make sure that it's a safety issue too. So I chime in on that also.
Yeah, I think if pedestrian traffic is welcome, then I think any business would welcome anybody who wants to come in and buy something. I think Ms. Wynn's point of pedestrians walking across a drive-through queued up traffic line, we might want to consider having some striping for a crosswalk to give the pedestrians the visual right of way, not just the presumed right of way, so that a driver in car knows to be alerted that there's people who may pass in front of them on foot. So we might want to look into that in some of the designs. We might ask Beta to look at that as well if we decide to go that route using Beta, or if using a peer review at all. I don't want to presume that. I don't want to presume to speak for the other board members, but anyway, I just want to make that distinction. Any other comments from board members? Sorry, to cycle through here to make sure I see hands raised if anyone wants to. I don't see any other planning board members with their hands raised or wishing to speak. So
it's a public hearing, so I would suspect you'd allow the public to speak.
Right. I was going to get there after we discussed the peer review issue. Pat,
My apologies.
Would you think it better to be done now or not?
Yeah, I would think so. It may affect how you want to do a peer review.
Okay, good point. Good point. So at this point, we will open it up to those in attendance from the general public who might have a question. I don't see any questions in the Q&A, so I'll wait to see if any hands are raised by any attendees. So we'll give them a minute or so. Not seeing anything coming up. Can someone confirm I'm not missing anybody? I don't want to move on.
There are no hands raised and there are no
Okay.
comments in the Q&A.
All right, thank you. Just want to make sure of that. So at this point, we'll open this up for discussion of the planning board or make a motion if we're there to talk about the peer review issue on this particular application. Anyone want to chime in first, whether or not we should consider a peer review?
I believe we should consider a peer review.
I
Okay,
agree.
I agree. I
okay.
agree also.
Seems like everyone's in agreement. So now the issue at hand is who is to be our peer review. We do have a submission with a scope of work, I believe, that Nora provided us from Beta Company, a company we're very familiar with. So if we are interested in hiring Beta, I guess we could simply leave it up to a motion and see how it plays out there, or we can have a discussion prior to. Go whichever route we'd like to go.
Can I just ask Nora, have we used anyone else recently?
In the past, we've used Beta, Bills and Thomas, and I'm drawing a blank on the other gentleman's name. Maybe Jessica recalls. Oh, I can't believe I'm not thinking of it, but there's another gentleman who has done peer reviews for the town lately. I was communicating on another project with Beta, and they were able to give me a quick proposal that they could get to work right on, whereas going out to the other companies would take a little bit longer. So I thought it would be in the interest of time to go with Beta, and I know they're very familiar, especially with traffic studies in this area, because they've done a lot of work for the town. But if you'd like me to reach out to any of the other, Tom Houston, sorry, that's the other gentleman we've been using lately. So I'd be happy to reach out to them, but I know Beta's ready to go.
Yeah, I'm not price shopping. I'm just wanting to make sure that we're alternating with relative frequency. I believe we are. I just wanted to double check that.
I believe we are. This is actually the first one I've done since Abby has left, and now that John's on board, he will take over from here. But there haven't been any recent orders for peer review.
Great.
Nora, what's the turnaround time? What would
So
be the
it'll take about 2 weeks from the time we have a signed contract with Beta for them to get in the initial report. Then that will get out to the applicant, and we'll expect responses just prior to the meeting on the 28th.
Okay. Any other discussion on this issue from planning board members? And if not, if we'd like to, someone like to make a motion to hire Beta as our peer review consultant for this particular application?
Yep. So I'll make a motion that the planning board direct the applicant to provide the sum necessary, approximately $9,950, to cover the anticipated cost of peer review services for this application, which will be provided by Beta Group.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing and hearing none, I will do a roll call vote. Josh?
Yes.
Phil?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Ellen?
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. So Nora, you'll process that with Beta? And
Yes, I will. I'll get a signed contract, and then Michael, if you can provide a check or go through the application process either way for the initial cost, that's an estimate we're expecting to fall within, is $9,950. I'll get the contract signed with Beta, and we'll get them working on that right away.
Or Mr. Chair, before we proceed, will the applicant have a chance to review the scope of work before we get into this with Beta?
I can send you the scope of work. I can send it to you right now if you want to take a look at it.
If you wouldn't mind, Nora, that would be helpful.
Sure.
okay. So I think that that's all the issues with regard to this application, right, Nora?
That's it. So if you'd like to
Public comment
close
period?
continue the hearing to the 28th at 7 p.m. via Zoom.
All right, someone like to make that motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any other discussion on the continuance? All right, hearing none. Phil?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
Josh?
Aye.
Ellen?
Aye.
I vote aye as well. Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Brown and everyone for your presentation, and we look forward to seeing you in a few weeks.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
Your next application is a scenic road application for the alterations to a stone wall at 500 Sandy Valley Road. And the applicant is Matt Sullivan. I will promote him to a panelist.
Good evening.
Hello.
How is everyone?
Hi, Matt.
Thank you for your time tonight. Very simply, I'm Matt Sullivan from Sudbury Design Group. I'm a landscape architect. We are here seeking approval for 500 Sandy Valley Road. Currently, the frontage of the property has one curb cut entrance to the property. We're looking to add a second curb cut, which would require the dismantlement of a dry laid fieldstone wall that's along the frontage. We're looking to actually open up two small sections of the wall. One would be about 20 foot 6 inches wide. A second one would be about 5 foot 10 for more of a pedestrian access that lines up with the front door of the house. We're actually proposing to take all that stone and repurpose it and actually extend the fieldstone wall along the roadway on the south side of the property to basically continue a continuous frontage of dry laid fieldstone along the entire frontage of this property. So we're basically seeking approval for a larger wall opening than the 15 feet would allow on a scenic road.
Okay. Planning board members, any questions for the applicant?
Ellen?
Yes,
Oh,
sorry. I realized Chris probably couldn't see me. Hi. One, I love that you are going to repurpose the stone that you want to remove. My only question is, and it may be a silly question, but are you going to, reconstruct it in the same manner that it was built now, the dry laid wall without any mortar or anything?
Correct. It would still be a dry stacked wall. Yes, we want it to all look like it's a continuous appearance across the wall.
Awesome. So that in theory, someone wouldn't necessarily know whether it had been there for 200 years or whether you had just moved it there.
That is our anticipation. Yes.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yep.
And it looks to me you are creating 33 feet of wall with 25 feet of stone.
Correct. So there's a few things there just because since it is a dry laid wall, the height of the wall varies, and where we're planning to elongate it is actually on the lower slope of it. So I'd say that it varies in height anywhere from 24 inches down to as low as 16 inches. So the extension will probably be on the shorter side of that. And until we dismember it, we're not going to know exactly how much stone might be buried underground as opposed to being on the surface. So we'll extend what we have, and then if need be, I guess we could talk about it, but we could bring in some additional fieldstone if needed, but we just want to make sure that it continues the same appearance as what is currently in place.
Do we have any information as to how old this wall is?
Unfortunately, I do not.
Okay, and is there some type of a base that the original wall is in that you'll have to recreate, taking up more of that stone?
Sure. So for this dry laid appearance, with the freeze and thaw of the ground, I'm not concerned about needing to do any type of base, but we can keep it in the same conditions that the current wall is constructed.
Okay, and does the wall actually end at the on the site plan? It shows it ending, but it doesn't continue like on the right side of the site plan. It continues on to the right, but on the left you show it terminating. It doesn't. Will be the actual termination of this wall.
Yes, we'll bring it all the way over to our corner property line. That's as far as, legally we can. Currently, if you look back on the existing conditions plan as well too, the wall stopped short of the existing curb cut and driveway entrance, which is where we're planning on extending it from.
Okay, that's all for me. Any other board members with questions for the applicant?
Could you just talk about the grading and the stormwater runoff? Any changes?
There's no changes to stormwater on this. We basically are going to sheet flow the existing driveway into the yard, but we're basically adding a new driveway here. And the stormwater, there's already stormwater in place. There's a catch basin that's already in the driveway that will handle what it is, but we're not proposing any additional stormwater now.
Any changes in the grading?
Not really. Obviously we have to regrade just where the driveway is coming in, but there's no major alterations.
Okay. That's all for me.
Okay, any other board members with questions? Yes, Josh.
Hey, Matt, I was just wondering about the north side, that new wall that you're going to be putting in there. There does look like there's some scrub tree over there. I noticed on the application said no trees are going to be removed.
So no trees will be removed in the right of way. There's actually 2 burning bushes over there that are actually invasive that would be coming out. I would consider them more shrubs, and they're invasive that we remove, and we'd extend that wall in that location.
Perfect.
Okay, anyone else? Okay. This is a public hearing, right? We have to open this up.
This is a public hearing, yes.
So at this point, seeing no more questions from applicant or from board members, we'll put it out to the public for any comments or questions they may have. I see one hand raised. Individual identified simply by the letter K.
I will allow them to talk.
Thank you. I just wanted to share, I believe the age of the stone wall is probably over 100 years old, because it was part of the 400 and the Gay Street property, which was the farm from around the corner. So just to give you some sense of age, it's probably well over 100 years old.
Okay, thank you. Would you be kind enough to identify yourself?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I'm 506 Sandy Valley Road. So next door neighbor.
And your name?
Kate Donlin.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other members from the public have any questions or comments?
We did receive a memo from Beta, acting as the consulting town engineer, that had some comments for the, in the memo presented to Todd Korchin, the DPW director. Beta didn't recommend one way or another in favor or opposed to this, but did recommend that if the board was inclined to approve it, that they require some additional information to be submitted to the director of public works. And they Beta believed that was necessary information before a curb cut permit could be issued for the property. And I know they are looking for information on the increase in impervious area, total land disturbance, a detail of the driveway, a detail of the new stone wall, and showing proposed grading on the site plan.
Okay.
They were also asking for stormwater runoff mitigation, if necessary, preferably through low impact design techniques. So I know Matt said that currently it's proposed to sheet flow to the lawn. But if there's any stormwater that could be expected to run down either the existing driveway or the proposed driveway onto Sandy Valley Road, the DPW, in order to issue a curb cut, will require that all of that stormwater be treated or captured on site.
Just a comment on that, if I can. Just due to the grading of the site, there's nothing that actually pitches out towards the road. Everything is pitching inwards to the property.
Okay. Do we have that represented anywhere on any of our plans, a topo? Anything?
There are topo on both the existing conditions and the proposed plans. I'm staring at the plan right now. Where we're proposing our curb cut is approximately a 102 grade contour, and we're sloping down all the way down to a 98 as we get towards the front door.
I've displayed the plans if everyone can see those.
Just based on this grading, I don't see any chance of stormwater running into Sandy Valley Road.
Then also with the cobblestone at the end there, that will break up the any laminar flow, even if it did go that way too. So
yeah, I would tend to agree looking at the topo of this. All right. And to the other conditions cited from Beta, Mr. Sullivan, do you have any?
Don't really have too many comments on some of those other criteria. On this, as I said, stormwater, I believe can be mitigated on site. In regards to a detail for the driveway, we can provide that. I was under the impression we were here in regards to simply the wall opening, but we can definitely provide a detail on what the asphalt paving detail would be.
Nora, is that in our purview for this?
The driveway itself is not, the stone wall is. You can ask for a detail of the stone wall, but in order to have the curb cut that allows the driveway to go there, DPW will need the proposed detail of the driveway.
You don't necessarily have to present to us, but it will be needed.
Not a problem. We have that.
Okay. Any other issues pertaining to the wall with planning board members? Any other comments or questions? Or if you feel you're ready to vote on this, we could entertain a motion. Or
So
not.
I move that the planning board grant approval for the Scenic Road application filed by Matthew Sullivan and recorded in the office of the town clerk on May 5th, 2022. With the condition, and correct me if I've got these conditions wrong, with the condition that the applicant provide additional information and materials for review and approval by the Director of Public Works as follows. Additional information on the, do I need the impervious surface? I do, right? Yeah, okay. Additional information on the proposed increase in impervious surface and total land disturbance, detail of the proposed new driveway, detail of the proposed new stone wall. And I think, is that it?
Proposed grading, they were looking for that appears to be shown on the plan, so I don't think you have to add that. And then any proposed stormwater runoff mitigation to prevent the flow of runoff to Sandy Valley Road, that I think has been addressed in the comments you've heard so far. So I think just what you've stated so far is sufficient.
Perfect. That completes my motion.
I would second Kate's motion.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll take a roll call vote. Ellen?
Aye.
Phil?
Aye.
Josh?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. Okay. We need to close this hearing, Nora?
Yes.
Motion to close the hearing?
Second.
Any other discussion? Ellen?
Aye.
Phil?
Aye.
Josh?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
I vote aye.
Thank you
Okay,
very much for your
very
time.
much, Mr. Sullivan. Best of luck in your project.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, your next application is an earth material movement application for 122 Wilsondale Street. And I'll bring in the applicant is, I believe, represented by Carl Jackson.
Good evening, everybody.
Hello.
How are you?
Doing well, thank you.
My name's Carl Jackson. I'm trying to figure out why my video's not on. Oh, hold on. There we go. Awesome. My name's Carl Jackson. I work with my wife at Allison Campbell Design Landscape Design, and we are here proposing a landscape including a pool for 122 Wilsondale Street. The applicants are Liz and Todd Williamson. We produced a landscape plan for them this winter. They originally had an architect do a plan for a pavilion off the back of the house. And they wanted to add a pool and some other landscape elements to that plan for proposed construction this summer. We went ahead and did the plan and ended up having to go in front of the Conservation Commission because a portion of the landscape would be inside the 100-foot buffer zone. We appeared in front of the board, the Concom, and we were granted permission with no negative
Termination.
Exactly, thank you. So we were allowed to have the portion inside the 100-foot buffer zone. It became evident at that point that we were going to be triggering the earth movement because of the amount of material that's going to have to be moved. There's a hill behind the house that when we have a chance to take a look at the grading plan is going to have to be excavated into and a portion of it leveled off to create the area for the pool. So we have submitted all of the pieces for the application for that. I think currently what we're also looking at is we have to do some stormwater mitigation. Evidently, I've never run into this before, but evidently the pool deck has to be collected and sent into an infiltration system. And also the drawdown for the pool has to be able to go into an infiltration system in the ground so that it doesn't run off and enter into the stormwater system for the town. We had sent the paperwork for, we had an engineer do up the plan for the stormwater mitigation. Unfortunately, because of time constraints, we were not able to get the calculations produced for that system. He is in the process of scheduling that as we speak, but I don't have those calculations right now. We do have the plan which was submitted so that you can see how it is going to be constructed. I just don't have the calculations for the infiltration. When the original building addition was going to be done, there were some test pits that were dug, and we do have that soil information, which looked, according to the engineer that is working on our project, very favorable as far as the infiltration would go, but we don't have those calculations because at that time they did not do any perk tests because they had no reason to. I think they were basically just looking for soil structure for foundation support, so forth and so on. So I think what we're looking for is permission from you guys to go ahead with the scheduling of the construction of the pool, which is the main element that has to be done first off this summer. As I said, we are in the process of getting the calculations for the infiltration system, and we should be able to have those, I would say, according to the engineer, within a couple of weeks. And obviously that would have to be presented to you guys before we were able to break ground, but I'd like to at least get on the pool company's schedule. We are in the queue with them, but getting actually a hard date is what I'm trying to get set up with them so that we don't end up sliding back in their schedule and ending up not being able to do this project this year. I guess that's about all I have to say up front. If you guys have any questions, I'd be happy to try and answer for you.
So in the absence of an actual stormwater report and the calculations, we don't know exactly how much earth is going to be moved here, right? Because we don't have it.
No, the earth movement, we calculated somewhere between 300 and 400 yards of earth were going to be moved. I think that's a separate issue. The stormwater is just going to take care of the water that comes off of the pool deck, and whatever drawdown has to happen for the pool in case there was ever any maintenance that had to be done on it or anything like that. As far as the earth movement goes, I think that we've submitted the calculations for that, and we know that that's roughly the amount that's going to have to be moved in order to create the area for the pool to be constructed. So I think those are, as far as my understanding, those are two different situations.
Nora, aren't they tied together?
Well, so when the planning board reviews an earth material movement application, they look at stormwater management from the perspective of how it affects the site. Typically, either the Conservation Commission or the conservation agent has already granted stormwater management approval, so we know that the full design is completely set and nothing will change. So in this case, because that approval hasn't been granted, there's still a theoretical possibility that the conservation agent could require some form of stormwater mitigation that you haven't planned for that could affect the size of a recharge area or something that would be different that might affect the amount of fill that has to come onto or off of the property. What the board could do in this case is they could grant earth material movement approval subject to that stormwater approval. And if there are any changes to the plan, you would have to come back to the planning board and get an amendment of that approval.
So when you're saying changes to the plan, you're saying if there was more impervious area that was added to the scope of the project, we would have to get an additional approval?
Not so much about more impervious area, but more fill that comes into or out of the site, more earth movement than is proposed. So your application right now proposes, I don't remember the exact amount of earth material movement.
I'm pretty sure it was 300 to 400 yards, somewhere in that area.
So if it changed at all beyond what you have in your application, became a little bit more, a little bit less, specifically a little bit more
Right.
trucks coming to and from the site, the
Right.
planning board would have to amend its approval.
Okay.
So what I would recommend, because you wouldn't want to have to schedule another hearing because that would delay you by a month having to
Right.
schedule another hearing. So I would recommend that if the planning board feels they're prepared to vote to approve an earth material movement EIDR approval tonight, that the board make that motion, grant that approval, but leave the hearing open. Don't close the hearing, continue it to your meeting on June 28th. And then if anything changes in the meantime, they can come back to you at that meeting without having to have a new advertisement. And if nothing changes and they're ready to go ahead with the project and they have their stormwater management approval in hand, you simply close the hearing at that time.
Okay, I understand that. The one thing I will say, and obviously it is not equivalent to having the figures in front of us. I sent the engineer the soil structure notes that the original guy had produced. And when he looked at it, he said that the soil looked better than he suspected that it would. And that based on what they had done, they were pretty conservative with what they had sized. He thought that if the soil, which the pit that was done, or one of the pits that was done was in the area where the infiltration system is supposed to go, he said that they would probably actually be able to downsize it based on the soil profile that he saw in the survey guy's notes. So for whatever that's worth.
Okay. Board members, any other questions for the applicant or concerns that you'd like to express?
So you don't see any changes in the earth movement totals that you Because you have 350 plus material export, 350 plus or minus 100 import. No expectation of change of that, correct?
Not as far as I know. I mean, I based it on conservative numbers as far as what the excavation was going to have to be done for the pool itself. And then the infiltration system, I based on what I had expected to be done based on what the engineer told me. The hillside and the lawn area that has to be lowered and leveled for the pool itself to go into. Again, I was pretty conservative, and I don't think there's going to be more material coming out. Coming back in, I think, again, I was pretty conservative as far as what we were going to need. I think we're going to probably end up bringing in less material than that, but I didn't want to be low. So I was pretty conservative on both ends.
So you've included both the pool and the infiltration system in those numbers, correct?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know. No other questions.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Phil. Any other board members? Okay, don't see any. Nora, we have requested waivers.
Yes, so the way the application has been written, there's a request for you to waive any materials not already submitted. They didn't go into a list of details of what those specific waivers are. This is an earth material movement application that falls under your environmental impact and design review requirements. That section of the bylaw requires many submittal items involving lighting, a model, traffic reports. There a number of items that really don't apply to this limited scope of a project. So the board could propose a motion to waive all requirements not submitted with this application that are deemed unnecessary for the board's consideration. If you're willing to do that. I know it's a rather broad waiver, but I believe you have everything before you. You need to consider this. You have the grading plan, you have the landscape plan, you know the location of the facility and the amount of fill that would come and go. And I think what this board typically does in an earth material movement application is establish the route that the traffic of those trucks carrying material should take and establish conditions that require cleanup, repair of any damage to streets or sidewalks.
No, those are our standard conditions for earth material movement.
They are.
Okay.
And there is no lighting.
There will be lighting at some point, and I'm not sure if I understood what you said, Nora. We did submit waivers for all of the other requirements, the lighting, the model, the traffic study. So they should be on our submittal. If they're not, I'm not sure why they aren't.
Let me check the submittal. The package that was submitted that was posted for the planning board meeting packet under waiver request. There's a statement, drawings and renderings on behalf of the applicants, Russell and Elizabeth Williamson. We inform the board of the following. There are no drawings or renderings associated with this application other than a submitted site plan, landscape plan, proposed grading plan, and drain plan. So that's what's in the meeting packet. I'm going back into the application to see if I can find a specific.
Because I know we downloaded in each section the waiver for that particular section. So each one, the lighting, the traffic study, the model, those were all downloaded.
Okay, so rather than have typically an applicant submits a waiver request, a list of all the items. So you're asking to waive the exterior lighting plan, the traffic impact study, and the presentation model, and the stormwater drainage report.
Yeah, the waiver for the stormwater drainage was we submitted that waiver before we knew that we had to have the stormwater management as part of the package.
Right, but you don't have it yet. So I think you would want the board to still grant that waiver as well.
I see. Okay.
But condition your approval on the submission of the stormwater management report to the conservation agent, the issuance of an administrative stormwater management approval, and then all of the standard conditions requiring transportation of fill. And in this case, I'd recommend that the transportation be from off of Westfield Street onto Wilsondale, and that the trucks reach Westfield Street only by means of Summer Street or a road in an adjacent town
Yep.
approaching Westfield Street. In other words, no traffic through a neighborhood street.
Right, okay. Yeah, I mean, they're at the end of Wilsondale Street, all the way down by the Dedham Club. So coming in from the other end from Dover would be a horrible decision on anybody's part to bring a truck down that road.
Right.
I've done landscape construction for 45 years, so I would never have anybody come in that way. I mean, I'm not going to be managing the construction of the job. It's not all we do is the design. We're not contractors. But certainly anybody that I was involved with doing trucking into that job, I would not have them go that way.
So the decision will specifically prohibit truck traffic to the site through Far Reach Road. I
Yep.
can't imagine anyone going that way anyhow.
I can't
but-
either. It would be a bad decision.
Yes.
All right, so I think Nora has laid out a plan for us that would allow the applicant to move forward and still protect the town with regard to the stormwater. So if other board members, oh yes, Kate, do you have
All right,
something?
I just want to go back to one thing. So what's happening with the lighting plan? What?
I'm hoping that we can waive the requirement for the review of the lighting plan. I mean, this is an existing backyard in behind a house that was built, I think, in the 90s. You know, there's going to be a small amount of path lighting and maybe a little bit of landscape lighting that happens as part of the project, but it's not any great amount by any means. I'm not a believer in a lot of landscape lighting. I try to keep it to a minimum, mostly for access, safety, so forth and so on. So I would hope that the board would see that the scope of this project is such that the lighting is going to be minimal. It's not going to be something that is going to light up the back of the house to the point where it's going to disturb the neighbors or anything like that. I mean, the Williamsons are looking for a nice pool area that's going to be a calming, nice place to hang out. They're not going to be having basketball games back there with sports lighting. So that's kind of my hope.
We're basically looking to not do much more than the lighting we already have off of the back of our house to begin with, to light the way it lights up now to our patio now. And there will be a light inside the pool and maybe a little bit of downward lighting onto the walkways, but that's about it.
So the zoning bylaw has a section on exterior lighting that you would simply have to comply with. And when the building permit is submitted for the lighting fixtures, the building commissioner will ensure that it conforms with that section of the bylaw.
So in Westwood, landscape lighting, 12-volt lighting has to go in front of the building department and get a permit?
Yes.
Okay.
All electrical work does require a permit. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other comments from board members? Okay, not seeing.
I think the only other thing we need to discuss, I know we talked about the route for the trucks. We're going to also mention the hours.
Yeah, I think
Yes.
we should
The standard.
list.
That's a
all
standard
the
condition.
conditions.
Yes. So hours of construction activity are Monday through Saturday from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. and Sunday from noon to 7 p.m.
Okay.
And that will be also a standard condition of an earth material movement approval.
Nora, do we need to list all of our standard conditions?
I
Hearing?
don't think you need to because they are your standard conditions, but if you want to, I can.
I'm fine without, but I just want to make sure everyone is okay with that. Does everyone understand what the conditions are?
Let's just incorporate the standard conditions and then go along.
Okay. Given that, I guess we are at a point where if someone would like to make a motion to proceed with Nora's suggested plan, that would it would then go up to a vote to see if that's where we are, if we're all in agreement.
So I'll make a motion that we approve the earth material movement EIDR subject to the stormwater approval from the conservation agent and waive any materials not already submitted with the standard requirements.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, take a roll call vote. Phil?
Aye.
Josh,
Aye.
Ellen,
Aye.
Kate,
Aye.
I vote aye. Okay, so we will continue this, Nora, till the 28th of June.
At 7 p.m. via
Okay.
Zoom.
Okay, someone like to make that motion?
I move that we continue the public hearing for the EMM design review application for 122 Wilsondale Street to Tuesday, June 28th, 2022 at 7 p.m. via Zoom.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to continue. I don't remember, did I put this out for public comment?
No.
Oh, I don't think you did. No.
I didn't, so I will give,
Before you vote.
before we continue this, I will give an opportunity to those in attendance to raise a question or make a comment. So wait just a moment to see if anybody adds this in the Q&A or raises their hand.
Don't see any comments or raised hands.
Don't see any either. So we have a motion and a second to continue this hearing till the 28th. Any further discussion? I think I already asked that, but we'll do a roll call vote now to continue. Ellen,
Aye.
Phil,
Aye.
Kate,
Aye.
Josh,
Aye.
and I vote aye. So this hearing is continued to our June 28th meeting.
All right,
Awesome.
thank you.
Thank you all very much. Have a great night.
Thank
Thank
you.
you
Best of
too.
luck.
Good night.
Thank you.
All right, your next application is for an approval not required plan for 5 Noannet Circle. And I don't believe there's any applicant here, but I'll present the plans on my screen so you can take a look and see if you have any questions.
Nora, are you presenting?
Yes.
Sorry, okay.
Okay, sorry, it's just taking me a minute to get it to share. All right, so this is a proposal for an approval not required plan. It involves 2 properties, one at 5 Noannet Circle and one at 566 Dover Road. If you can see this little triangle here, this is a little piece of land that's being taken from the Noannet Circle or Noannet Circle property and being added to the 566 Dover Road property. And in exchange, that property is giving this triangle back here to the 5 Noannet Circle property. I believe the intention is to increase the backyard of the 5 Noannet Circle property. Changes the angle, gives them a little bit more backyard. We have property owner authorization. The application was submitted by the owner of 5 Noannet Circle, and we have a property owner authorization from the owners of 566 Dover Road. Both properties are compliant with zoning now and will be compliant after the fact. You can see they actually both get an increased backyard out of this. So the minimum required backyard is 30 feet. Right now, they both meet that 30-foot requirement. After this lot change, the 566 Dover Road property's backyard would increase to 35.7 feet, and the 5 Noannet Circle property would increase to 39 feet 6 inches. So there would be some benefit to both property owners in this proposal. The applicants are in agreement with going forward with this, and both properties have actual adequate access off of existing roads. So there are no concerns I can see, no reason why the board would consider this a subdivision instead of an approval not required plan.
Okay. Any questions from board members for Nora? There's no applicant here tonight. Okay, seeing none. I can't see Phil. Wait a minute. Let me see Phil. There he is. Anybody have any comments, questions? Okay. Seeing none, why don't we have a motion to endorse the A&R as Nora presented?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, Kate,
Aye.
Josh,
Aye.
Phil,
Aye.
Ellen,
Aye.
I vote aye. Okay, Nora, can that be at the police station again?
Yes, it will be there. So I will actually bring it up on my way home tonight. So if anyone wants to stop by tomorrow, they'll be able to sign it at the police station.
Okay, great. Again, whoever is last to sign, if you could just text Nora to let her know that it's complete.
That'll be great.
Be
Text or
great.
email is fine.
Yeah.
All right, your next item is review of draft minutes from the May 17th meeting, and I apologize for getting them to you very last minute. So
Yeah,
if you
was a
haven't
quick
had
break.
time to review them, you can put that off to your next meeting.
So any board members with any changes or amendments to the minutes? Or if we'd like to, we can move these to the 28th meeting on the 20th, sorry.
I looked at them very quickly, so I'm comfortable with what I saw, but if folks need more time, that's fine too.
Yeah, I'm in the same, I read it right before we started our meeting. So
Same for me. It was a skim.
I didn't see anything glaring. I didn't see anything that was misrepresented or inaccurate. So at this point, I guess we can entertain a motion to accept the minutes as submitted.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion on the minutes? Okay, Josh,
Aye.
Phil,
Aye.
Kate,
Aye.
Ellen,
Aye.
I vote aye.
Thank you. And then the next two items I just had on here are updates for agency and committee representatives, if there were any. I don't think there have been any committee meetings since our last planning board meeting. And general miscellaneous updates and administrative items. I actually don't have any for you at this meeting.
Or did our
Mr. Chairman, I have a miscellaneous item for you.
Oh, okay.
The current order that we operate remotely under is due to expire on July 17th, which means at that point in time, we will have to go back to in-person meetings if there's not some action by the state legislature. I learned today that there is a bit, the Senate has passed a bill to extend remote meetings till the end of the calendar year. The House has not taken it up yet, and we don't know if they will. So as you start thinking about your meetings moving forward, any meeting after July 15th right now will have to be in person. That's, of course, subject to change if the legislature acts.
And if you do return to in-person meetings in July, that would begin after your July 12th meeting. That will be remote. Your August 9th meeting would be in person. And all planning board meetings that are in person will be scheduled for the Champaign Meeting Room, as we had done in early 2020 and before then.
And
So if
Nora,
they don't
those-
act, so Pat, if they don't act, then it just expires. It has an
Right.
expiration. Okay.
And Nora, if we're in person, it's still a 7 o'clock start?
That's up to the board. It's scheduled right now for a 7 o'clock start from here out and through December. So that's how we set the meetings. If that's going to be a problem for board members, we can adjust the calendar. So give that some thought and we can discuss that at your next meeting.
What's the latest we can make that change with notifications? And
48 hours beforehand.
Yes,
Meeting.
every agenda will be posted with the time that you intend the meeting to start. So you could do it on a month-by-month basis if you wanted to. I'd encourage you to pick a time if possible and either start at 7 or start at 7:30, whatever works best for board members.
Actually, since we've progressed closer to summer, people may have made plans. Does anyone have any conflicts with the dates we've established for meetings? July 12th, August 9th?
July 12th, August 9th, and then the next one isn't until September 6th.
Right.
I will not be at your August 9th meeting.
Okay. So I'm hearing nothing from board members, so everyone's schedule is still open for those two dates for July and August. Okay, I just wanted to be sensitive. I know sometimes it's hard planning vacations with families or whatever, so.
It's also a little easier if it's a remote hearing as compared to in person, because then you can always log in even if you're away or somewhere else.
I've done it for my car in a parking lot in North Carolina before.
There you go. Mhm.
The July 12th meeting will definitely be remote, and we'll hope that the August 9th meeting is remote as well, but we won't
Has
know.
there been any discussion about hybrid, or is it just remote or present?
Well, there's not been any discussion about hybrid that I know of on Beacon Hill in terms of legislating it. But from what I've seen, the hybrid technology has been difficult to get full participation with. The school committee has tried to use it from time to time, and it's sometimes hard to hear. So I think if we were to go hybrid, I think we would need to be authorized some way to have a hybrid meeting, because you just can't, you can't meet remotely unless the legislature tells you you can.
Sure. No, I understand. We have in the past been allowed to do phone-in participation.
There is provisions if you're going to miss a meeting, I believe in our town bylaws that allow you to phone in. I had to do it for several meetings when I was on the select board years ago. But there's a procedure you've got to go through, and if you want, I'll revive that procedure.
There are also limitations on that procedure. There must be a quorum of members physically present in the meeting room.
Right. I guess my question is could the phone-in, given technology, what we've advanced in the last couple of years, be replaced by a Zoom call-in as opposed to a phone-in?
I don't see why it couldn't, but I don't know that for a fact, right, as I sit here tonight.
So I believe
I just find it
we
much
actually-
easier to participate being visually present versus just
certainly
a phone call.
I believe we used that in a couple of instances early on. I know one of the very first meetings during the pandemic before in March of 2020, we were still at in-person meetings. We had a member who couldn't make it. I believe we did have a video conference. I don't know if it was by Zoom or team meetings or something, but I believe we did use a video conference for a meeting of one of our boards.
But there's a procedure that you have to follow to not appear personally at the meeting, and Nora's right. A quorum has to be present in person at the location of the meeting.
Okay.
It seems, one of the, never mind. Enough.
All right. I'm good with enough. Any other questions, comments, things to bring up from board members? I was going to ask Nora, did the select board hear our recommendations for the committees?
I don't believe they did yet. I think they're taking that up at their next meeting.
Okay.
That's it. They usually do their appointments at the second meeting in June.
Yeah, and Chris, I don't recall seeing it at any meeting I've attended.
Okay, I was just curious. All right. Yes, Kate.
Just one thing to mention. I don't know if folks saw this, but the select board is talking about the comprehensive plan.
Yes.
So
the select board, yes. So that is going to be an agenda item on your next meeting. I know you typically over the summer try and look over the comprehensive plan action items and see what you need to look at going forward, especially in regard to zoning amendments or general bylaw amendments. So I will put together a reformatted implementation schedule, noting what items have been completed to date and what items you still have to work on. And I'll put that on your agenda for your June 28th meeting to take a look at. And going forward, the select board would like to have a report on the comprehensive plan, so they too are aware of what implementation actions are out there waiting to be undertaken, who's responsible for different actions, which departments, which boards and commissions. So that's something that they're interested in following up on.
Okay. Anyone else have anything to add from your committee? Okay, I think we've gone through the agenda, right, Nora?
We have. Thank you very much.
All right, I want to also say an additional welcome to Mr. Charbonneau. John, great to have you here. Looking forward to working with you. I'm sure Nora will be of immense assistance as we move into the summer. Hopefully a fairly light agenda, right, Nora?
Hopefully, hopefully.
we need to consider how we're going to move in the fall with regard to any zoning changes for the next town meeting. So we have to keep that in mind as we move forward. So, all right. With that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. We'll take a roll call vote to adjourn. Josh?
Aye.
Phil?
Aye.
Ellen?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
I vote aye. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank
Thank
you.
you,
Good night.
everyone.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.